Signalis is one of the best games I have ever played. It clearly wears its inspirations on its chest, and it feels very reminiscent of old Resident Evil titles for the visuals. The game manages to combine both 2D pixel work and 3D low poly models, and I love the end result. It makes an almost cleaned up version of a PS1 game. The areas are also very distinct and fun to explore. Each area has something that separates it from others that you've seen in the game. I love the puzzles in this game as they're just really unique. The game gives you a radio to search through frequencies that hold the answers, and with the amount of notes in this game has to offer, you're able to go through any time into your inventory and read any of them that you want. And before we start, I would like to say from here on out, there's going to be lots of spoilers, so I'd really recommend you play this game as it's truly one of my favorite games ever. Signalis' gameplay is probably the best survival horror has to offer, and it's left me wanting to hyperfixate about it and info dump on my friends. But while they all want me to shut up, I figured you all would be a great audience. You explore this underground facility filled with corrupted AIs whose focus is killing you if you even get in their paths, even getting up after being shot. This makes every enemy encounter feel like a scramble for your life. The game helps you by giving weapons in both guns and melee weapons. If you've played Resident Evil, you have your standard armory, such as pistols, revolvers, shotguns, and a rifle. Guns can be a little risky as they can sometimes be really inaccurate, or you could run out of ammo due to the lack of inventory space. But you're also given special sidearms such as a stun rod or a flare. These items are very unique as they're able to immediately knock down enemies. But these come with the downside that they can only be used once and are sometimes really rare, so avoiding combat is sometimes usually the best option. Defeated enemies don't stay dead and will jump out at you, and adds a tint of anxiety about whether an enemy is really going to jump out at you or not. The puzzles at best are really good and feel rewarding whenever you're able to figure out what you're meant to do, but at worst can leave you spending hours running in circles trying to figure out the solution. The radio was really unique for this type of game, having to scroll through different stations to find the solutions to puzzles, and the sounds that the radio made were just really unnerving. There's also this specific enemy that requires you to switch to channels in order to defeat them. This is extremely stressful as you have to slowly take damage trying to find the right channels, and you have to figure out which replica is the real one. I touched on this earlier, but the game has a very limited inventory system. You can only hold up to 6 items at max. Items that take up slots include key items required for puzzles, weapons such as your guns or sidearms like the stun sticks or flares. Ammo also takes up quite a bit of storage due to how much you actually need for your weapons. And finally, healing items. I really like the limited inventory, forcing the player to check what items they're bringing to solve puzzles, but otherwise, they could get caught out by an enemy whenever they're not using a weapon. I got the small wooden doll. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Oh my god. But it can also be really annoying, as you may have forgotten to bring an item with you and have to make the long trek back to a safe room in order to get what you needed. But luckily, there are actually quite a lot of safe rooms, so you're never too far from a chest. I love the way this game is designed. The way you move between rooms, you never know what's going to be on the other side of that door. Sometimes it's safe and there's no enemies, and other times there'll be a bunch of enemies waiting for you on the other side. And sometimes rooms appear safe, and then a bunch of enemies jump out from under the floor. The story of this game is generally one of my favorites ever, as the game thrives from the mystery that it provides. There are inconsistencies everywhere that makes it a confusing mess, and I do admit, I am being 100% honest when I say there's not a word in the English language that can describe how out of my depth I am. So I'm going to try my best to interpret the story as I can. If you have any corrections, please leave them down below. I'm going to use the gameplay from my first playthrough as it covers quite a lot of the game, for the memory ending at least. The game starts with you waking up in a pod in a rundown ship. The lights are flickering. There's water leaking, and some of the room's doors don't even work anymore. We play as Alistair 512, a replica which is basically a synthetic human. You appear to be on some sort of spaceship called the Penrose 512. While in the cockpit, we find a photograph with a girl with white hair, and you use a suit at the back of the ship allowing you to leave onto the snowy planet. When we push through the blizzard, we find a book in a facility called the King in Yellow. We get told to remember our promise, and then we appear in front of a mirror, and we're finally given the ability to explore. We're able to find a star unit. They appear to be extremely damaged, and they want us to leave the facility immediately. We show the star unit the picture we found in the ship, but whenever we see the picture, we notice it's changed completely. It shows a woman with darker hair instead of the one with white hair back on the ship. The star unit gives us some information telling us that she may be one of the workers that were sent down in the mines. We then manage to stumble into a room with a protector key and find a pistol. This quickly comes in handy as we need to defend ourselves from the infected replicas. This shows us to be wary of any replicas that we find, even if we've already killed them, because at any moment they could jump out and fight once more. We continue our search for the person in the picture when we find a Gestalt in the library. She introduces herself as Issa Ito. She's able to quickly identify that we do not belong on the rot front and tells us that she too is searching for someone. And then she leaves. But we are able to get the code for the safe in the classroom and move on to the next area, which takes us to workers' accommodation. That was just the first area, and I think it does a great job of hooking the player into the game as we get solid introductions to the puzzles, the game shows us safe rooms, and it also allows us to store items and save. This also shows us how enemies work whenever they can be lying on the ground in order to jump out at you. As we enter workers' accommodation, it is easy to tell that something has definitely happened. The areas are extremely dusty, the bodies are littered everywhere, and furniture is upturned. Walking into one of the bedrooms for the workers, you can see that they're being squeezed into small bunk beds with each other, and in some of the beds we can find diaries that seem to portray some sort of infection taking over the facility. We're then able to find a key which is able to open a lockbox. This causes a sequence to play out where we are once more in the blizzard. We find a radio station in the snow and head inside, which gives us the ability to switch between all the different stations on our radio. Later, after we fight a mining unit in the surgery room, we run into another replica named Adler. Judging on what he's saying, you're able to quickly pick out that he leads the facility. He asks us what we want. We respond by telling him that we're looking for someone, which we give him a picture of Elena So. He recognizes the worker, before pushing us into an elevator shaft, telling us that we shouldn't have returned, and we land in the elevator shaft filled with other Alistair bodies, which luckily breaks our fall. Adler is just one of my favourite characters in hindsight, as he's just really interesting to me. He's a person who relies on his code for direction, and his code's telling him that there are things that need to be done in order to protect the facility, and he always chooses the most violent method. While Adler's not a combat unit, he of course is going to have a difficult time trying to deal with someone like Alistair because of how capable she is by herself. We can see the same thing later with Adler attempting to remove Issa. Adler tries to calm Issa's fears as he approaches her. Later, there's another cutscene between Issa and Adler, where Issa manages to get the jump on Adler, sticking a knife into his eye. In the mines, it appears that there are a group of replica that are uncorrupted. The first one we meet is Bio. Bio is a mining unit, but they seem to be badly injured, unable to move. But they just seem to have given up and accepted fate. They're at least happy that we decided to stay and give them some company in their final moments. Also in the mine is a Yule and a Star unit, with the Star unit appearing to be badly damaged and the Yule crying over them. The Star tries their best to cheer up the Yule. In the end, the Star's attempts appear to fail. I love these moments with the replica, as it gives them a sense of humanity, even though you've only been there and known them for such a short amount of time. We then exit the mines into nowhere as we jump into the flesh pit. We see Issa being attacked by some sort of cage, filled with all kinds of gore. In the end, Issa is able to stop it by shooting it. This does seem to knock Issa out for a while, so Alistair carries her to safety and searches for something to wake her up. She finds a small bottle which seems to do just fine. Issa comes to and gives us her rifle. At the end of nowhere, we find the exit to the facility, and climbing the stairs we find Adler with a knife in his eye, the knife that Issa used. He warns us not to leave. He tries to get us to stay. Alistair ignores his warning and leaves the facility and enters the Red World. The Red World is a confusing hellscape of lore to understand. We see that Falk keeps diaries mentioning it, and I believe the Red World is a place made using bioresonance, which basically allows someone to overwrite reality. The Red World we enter is Ariane's version, I think, with people we know in the story from before, like Elena. And I believe Ariane is using it to draw Alistair to her so that she can fulfill her promise. Alistair wanders through the barren wasteland. When she finds the Penrose 512, she climbs to the top and attempts to open the latch. Upon starting up a new save, we notice that the Penrose is in very good condition, and when searching through the rooms, we find Ariane, and then they dance together. This is significant as it marks the 3000th cycle anniversary of the Penrose 512. The Penrose program was designed to fall apart after 3000 cycles, and quickly after, everything started to go wrong for the people on board. In Ariane's notes, we can read that she started to notice clumps of hair and teeth starting to fall out. And because the radiation starting to leak into the ship, it's possible that Ariane had developed some form of cancer. And because of the pain being caused, Ariane makes Alistair promise to kill her, making the dance they had in the Penrose the last happy moment the two had together. Arming ourselves with new armor, we enter the final area. I'm back in the fucking building again! The rot front is the final area in the game, and things seem to be very unstable here. Every time you loot a room, you find that the door fills with flesh, making it possible to pass through. We find Issa in a worse state than before, and she's apologizing to something. She notices us approaching and informs us that Erica isn't here. Issa then starts to become infected until she begins to melt. As she walks towards the sign, we see that the picture of Erica that is destroyed, but we also see a picture of Issa. Issa has been dead for a while and has been roaming this entire facility as a part of the loop. Although, We have one more roadblock before we return to Ariane. Volk is a unit that plays an important role in the facility, as she's security high command. She is designed to not be able to be opposed or questioned by any other replica, and we know this from notes in the Volk room, that she possesses strong bioresonance, allowing her to control the conditions of the fight. We teleport around, fighting enemies, and once we defeat her, we head back to the stairs to the Red World. We run into Adler, whose control of the facility has been completely lost. He tries to get us not to leave. Alistair, who is still trying to make good on her promise, ignores Adler's request, which causes him to spring into action, stabbing Alistair's eye. Alistair shoots Adler, injuring him, forcing Adler to watch Alistair leave. Alistair returns once more to the Penrose, and successfully opening it, gets to the cryopod room with Ariane. She wakes her up, telling her that we've returned, but Ariane doesn't even remember us. Alistair collapses next to Ariane, asking to stay by her side for at least a little longer. So what just happened? While searching online trying to figure out the lore, I was able to find a bunch of different theories. First, I feel like it's important to know about Alistair and Ariane. These two are obviously the most important characters. Ariane Young joined the Penrose program and was sent on Penrose 512. While we don't know what exactly happened, we do know that she was paired up with an Alistair unit. Ariane became very attached to her Alistair and began a romantic interest in her. They don't get to have their happy ending, unfortunately. As you see, a quirk with the Penrose program is that it was meant to be a one-way trip. The ship would quickly begin to fall apart. Penrose 512 specifically starts to leak radiation into the ship. This poisons Ariane, and she develops cancer. Ariane makes Alistair promise that she would kill her if she gets into too much pain. This is what I believe the promise refers to, as we see Ariane make Alistair kill her so that the cycle can end. Speaking of the cycle, I believe that there is some sort of time loop, and only Adler is really aware of it. He always makes sure to meet Alistair by the elevator so that he can kick her in. I also love the idea of the loop in the game, as it could refer to the player going back and starting the game over and over. This video was intended to be a quick video so that I could try to get back to my ordinary schedule, but it just kept getting further and further out of hand. One thing after another, and I've got one of the hardest videos I've ever made. If you have any thoughts, please leave them down below. I try my best to respond to everyone, but I love this game and I thoroughly believe that Signalis is the best that survival horror has to offer.